Hello everyone, this is Britt with Scrappy Boy Stamps, bringing you a tutorial for the Fairytale Castle mini album die. Let's start with our base pieces. When I started this project, I knew I wanted to make a mini album. So with that in mind, I first cut out my largest base piece. Knowing that this shape mini album was going to need a front and a back cover, I used one of my favorite building materials for this kind of project, dollar store foam board. It's strong and lightweight, and it has gone through every machine I've ever tried it with. Then I cut this same shape out of colored cardstock that coordinates with my pattern paper. So for this example, I cut it a total of 6 times. Second, I cut the stitched base layer 2 times from pattern cardstock that I pulled from the Thank You for Being a Friend 6x6 pattern paper. The third base piece for this shape is going to be the castle outline. For this project, I cut it 1 time. With those done, let's cut our details. First, we'll cut the larger archway piece 1 time. This piece not only cuts, but also embosses a placement guide for the small windows. Next, there's 2 tower dies, one for the right and one for the left of the castle. We'll cut each one of these 1 time as well. You'll receive 1 die that cuts all 4 of the small windows. For this example, I'm only cutting this die once. And to round out the top row, you'll cut that smaller archway piece 1 time. The rest of the detail pieces for our castle are called spires. The largest spire is comprised of 2 separate dies. The larger base piece I cut once, and while I only cut the detail piece twice to get 2 separate colors, feel free to cut each of these spire pieces 3 times in order to get a more colorful look. Now, I do know the remaining spire pieces look very similar, but there's actually a really simple way to compare your pieces and make sure that you're putting everything in the proper place. Once we start adding these pieces to the project, I will make sure that you know that quick tip and you'll be all set. Now that everything's cut, let's start assembling. If you've been watching these tutorials for a while, you know I'm a big fan of liquid glue. Use what you're comfortable with, but I highly recommend liquid glue for this project. It's super versatile and gives a reliable hold between the cardstock and the foam board. I also really love that you can use your finger or a tool to spread it into all the nooks and crannies and get a really even coat of glue. Once that is applied, we'll attach the cardstock base pieces to the foam base pieces, one on the front and one on the back. With this method, I love how easy it is to create a front and back cover that is lightweight and coordinates perfectly with the paper and embellishments that you've chosen to decorate your album. Once you attach your coordinating cardstock to the front and back of your foam piece, you'll then use your liquid glue and attach the stitched base layer to the front of the album cover. This would also obviously be your first step if you were creating a card front instead of a mini album. This die set is actually perfect for mini albums and shaped cards. With a little imagination, I think this could even be a very cute favor box for a party. Now we actually need 2 of these, so with the snap of my finger and the magic of video, shazam! Now we have a front and a back cover. For now, we'll set the back cover aside so that we can build our castle onto the front. We'll use that same liquid glue and adhere the body of the castle to the front of our album. It fits perfectly on the stitch base layer, and there's absolutely no trick in lining it up. It sits centered on your base pieces. When I was choosing my color scheme for this project, I knew I wanted to take my inspiration from Cinderella's castle at Disney World. Ultimately, that's how I chose the color scheme of a pink building with blue and gold accents. Let's start building out our details. You use liquid glue to attach the larger part of the archway, and make sure when you're placing this piece that you center it as best you can and line up the bottom of the arch with the bottom of the castle body. Next, we'll place the 2 front tower pieces. As one of these pieces fits perfectly to the left and one to the right, you'll want to lay these down and make sure which is which before you commit to the adhesive. Putting this together reminded me that when I visited Disney World, I was 3 years old, and I was extremely disappointed that the castle was essentially the main entrance to the park. I had big dreams of going inside Cinderella's castle, and going through a tunnel where the characters were painted on the walls was not quite what I had in mind. I have heard that there are now events that happen inside, so maybe one day I'll go back and make that dream a reality. We'll finish up that archway with the gold glittery frame. And again, it's good to line everything up at the bottom so that it all fits perfectly. Next up, we'll place the 4 small windows. As I mentioned before, there's a placement guide that embosses into the front of the large archway piece, as well as in the front of the body of the castle. I know some of the other design team members decided to cut these twice and fill in those little tiny windows. Earlier this month, Bee shared a video where she shows exactly how to fill those in. I'll make sure I link to that video at the end of this one. Once the windows are done, it's time to assemble our spires. The largest spire, which sits at the center top, is the easiest to figure out, not only because it's noticeably larger, but also it has a flag. Now, while I'm going to finish all the details of the castle with liquid glue, this would be a great place to include foam adhesive, or maybe even cut several of the same piece and layer them to create dimension. Each spire has 2 finishing pieces, a little scalloped strip, and a straight band. For this demonstration, we'll call them the crown and the band. The largest spire also has the largest crown and band. The crown is placed first and the band directly on top. There's also an extra little flag piece, which you could cut in a contrasting color, but here I just cut it in blue to add a little bit of dimension. To the left of the largest spire is the smallest spire. Again, it's easy to see that this one is the smallest and that it has the smallest crown and band. And just like the large piece, the cone-shaped top goes on first, then the crown, then the band. Once the largest and smallest spire are in place, you have the 4 additional spires still remaining. I found that these two sizes were much more difficult to differentiate from each other. I tested out a couple of ways, but I found that the easiest way is to lay them on their side next to each other so that you can compare them at their widest point. When you compare them this way, it's easy to see which one is larger and which one is slightly smaller. Once you've differentiated the two, you'll adhere the slightly larger spire to the taller tower and the slightly smaller one to the shorter tower. We'll do the same thing on the other side, once again putting them short sides together where we can clearly see one of the pieces is just slightly wider than the other. It's always at this point in the project when I'm placing some of the last larger pieces in a design that I get that excited feeling. It's sort of like, hey, look at that. I did it. I know at this point that is a little premature, but it still gives me a good feeling to see it all coming together. To finish off the basic assembly of this design, each of these remaining spires has a crown piece and a band piece exactly like the others. And the same way that we compared the spires at their widest point to differentiate between the bigger and smaller piece, we can do the exact same thing here with the crowns and bands. And just like the spires, once you determine which is larger and which is smaller, the larger one is adhered to the upper tower and the smaller one to the lower tower. All 4 of your remaining spires are also assembled in the same order as the first 2. First, you attach the base, then the crown, then the band. Now, I think this design is easy once you learn how to put it together, and it's very versatile. Now, I know what you're going to say. Britt, girl, what do you mean versatile? That's always going to be a castle. And I know, I got you. But hear me out. With a little imagination, it could be a sand castle. It could be a medieval castle. You could even make it spooky and scary, and it could be Dracula's castle. But even with all those possibilities, of course, I wanted to make a fairy tale castle fit for a princess. Or to be more accurate, 6 princesses. This new collection of princess pinups is just about as adorable as you can imagine. Coloring up this set is a blast, and I knew if I was taking inspiration from Cinderella's castle, Miss Cindy herself was going to have to go right on the front cover. And not only am I in love with the images from this set, but I am in love with the sentiments. They say things like, sprinkle your sass everywhere, and I woke up this cute. But there's no doubt that my favorite one is whistle while you twerk. This whole set would be so cute to document a girls' weekend to Disney or decorate bachelorette party favors that had a princess theme. If you were the bride, you can even make little tongue-in-cheek thank you cards. I love the nostalgia factor of this set. At the end of the day, these cuties just make me smile. And that's all that really matters. In fact, I love them so much, I colored up all 6 princesses and all of the cute little sentiments just to make sure I could include them all in my mini album. I left space here for photos and maybe a little bit of journaling, but each one of these would make a super cute card, and you could definitely personalize the fairy tale castle to fit any of these princesses and their individual stories. For my other project, I really wanted to show that this could be an adorable wedding card. I went all the way back to that first release of the Once Upon a Time series because some of those images are perfect for a bride and groom. Well, friends, if you made it this far, thank you so much. I really can't tell you how much I appreciate you coming and watching my tutorials. If this is the first time you've watched one of my tutorials, go down in the comment section and tell me what was your favorite part. And if you're a return viewer, tell me which tutorial has been your favorite of mine so far. As always, we want to say thank you for being a member of our little crafty community. We really couldn't do this without you. If you haven't already, please join us over at the Scrappy Boy Instagram page and Facebook group. There you'll find the latest releases, updates, and even sneak peeks of what's to come next. And if you're looking for more inspiration, that is where you can interact with our amazing design team. They post projects, tutorials, and videos all month long. If you're not following every single one of them, you should be. Speaking of inspiration and updates, make sure you like and comment on this video and subscribe to the Scrappy Boy YouTube channel. That way you won't miss any new videos. A product list as well as links to the Scrappy Boy store can be found in the description box below, along with Scrappy Boy on social media and all the places you can find me. Lastly, if you take only one thing away from this video today, let it be this. We can't all be princesses. Someone has to clap when I walk by. See you next time. Bibbidi bobbidi bye.